It is
All
still
right.
background noise from someone.
I'll just ask you guys to folks to add yourself to the attendees list. I can share my screen. Oops, I should probably pull this into its own window. There we go. Huh. I think I broke it forever now. Okay, let's try that again. Whoops. So many approvals on these things to get. All right, is that the one I want? Perfect. All right. I don't have a ton of stuff on the agenda today. I just was going to give an update on the big projects that we've been working on. First on the list there is the log QLv2 stuff. We had another, so we have a stakeholders group of myself, David Kalschmidt, Cyril, Frederick, sorry, Brantz, I think maybe his last name.
Yep.
And Tom Wilkie. And we've been progressing through that. A couple of the docs. I don't know if anybody has trouble with permissions on those docs, let us know. But
yeah, you can ask permission, and they are not up to date with the last meeting, although it's not that far from what we discussed, but I still need to update it.
Yeah, you want any other sort of feedback from those meetings, Cyril?
We're looking at basically the filter, how we're going to achieve filtering on extracted labels. So that's where we are. We're discussing this, which I think will be the last part. But yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, and there's a big question too on how certain types of error handling would do. So if you are applying a regex filter to your logs and the filter doesn't match, right? Or you're doing JSON extraction and it's not a valid JSON doc, etc. It's like, what do we do with those kinds of things? There's not a obvious great answer for that, right? So ignoring the line means the results are somewhat partial or maybe not to be expected, and erroring the query is difficult because the ability for people to change the logs isn't really there, right? So like, what do you do if it errors? You'd have to find a way to remove the stream that's erroring. It's just one log line. So results in warnings of an errors are possible too. So I don't exactly know where we're going to land on that, but it is it is an interesting problem. But excited though, because it's going to be, moving a little bit slower. I guess we're moving a little bit slower on everything than except Owen, your alerting looks like it's coming along pretty well. I listed the PR that you opened there. There's a sort of open discussion around the best way to handle changes that we need in some Prometheus packages inside of Cortex and Loki. We want to try to make upstream changes if we can, but it's historically a little difficult to make upstream changes in Prometheus that aren't strictly for the Prometheus project, right? So making changes to benefit effectively Loki has been difficult, but we still want to see if we can at least head down that road. You want to continue from there, Owen? Sorry, I'm kind of...
Yeah, sure. I was trying to get the sense on if you were going to talk for me or if I was supposed to talk.
I was going to start talking for you.
But yeah, you've kind of laid it out pretty well. There's a couple of changes that we would need to some of the upstream Prometheus packages to support like logql based alerting. And then there's a lot of great work in the Cortex ruler that really enables a lot of the functionality that we need as well. So basically trying to find the least invasive changes we can do for that. So right now there's a PR up that has like the probably most naive way forward, which is a series of pretty invasive changes, but we'll be kind of trying to figure out better ways to do that, both in terms of like code changes, but also in terms of, kind of getting community buy-in to see if we can get some upstream refactorings.
So should you say that you've been running this
Excuse
for a
me?
while? Should you say that you've been running this for a while in dev?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've been running it both as individual nodes and like across restarts and ring resharding. Takes a lot from the Cortex ruler, which is it basically uses the ring module to schedule work in a horizontally scalable way. I've been using it with a vanilla alert manager, and that's probably going to be the initial path. There's some more information on like next steps in that PR as well.
Nice, thanks, Owen. The BoltDB shipper also coming along, but slower. We backed up a little bit, thinking through some of how future pieces of this are going to work when we have to support deletes, compactions and things. The original design was having ingesters re-upload an index file, so they'd make changes and they'd periodically just sort of push that. But having mutable state and object stores is sort of impossible to manage when you want to do things like deletes. So that pull request that's open there, Sandeep is working and we're working through to change the behavior such that we basically only ever upload immutable files. So that simplifies some of the design quite a bit, but it also means that, for like a 10 ingester cluster, you might be uploading what is about 1,000 files a day. So it will increase the need for a compactor, I think. It's a little bit to be determined how sort of fast, so BoltDB index files can't be merged. So we basically iterate all of them. We download and then iterate, asking each one for. So I don't know if it's faster to, make one giant BoltDB file and ask it, or, iterating. There's going to be some trade-offs there. So we'll kind of see. But I think initially it's not going to be a huge requirement to have a compactor, but it definitely will be in the long run. But I think we're still sort of hoping to have that PR fleshed out with some more tests and things, next week, and getting stuff running in our environments in the next week or two, to where I'm still hopeful towards the end of July we'll be in a, I don't think it'll be quite production ready, but where we're maybe running it in production. I was gonna. Is it all right, Perry? Is that an acceptable short name for you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That's totally fine, and you can write me with any R's or Y's or I's you like. It's.
I think I've there's a few combinations so far. So.
Yeah, Greek names are not easy.
I see you added a couple comments here. You want to?
Yeah, just raise awareness, because this is basically the spot where we chimed in from Red Hat side. We're running currently a cluster with BoltDB shipper and member list. Is basically our set what we want to stress test and find out if we can transfer this in an in-cluster situation for replacing our current store, the not so beloved Elastic. But this is future music. Currently, we have member lists in place, and we use the non-experimental version that mostly Peter landed. And this thing can do rejoins and also join in background if you fail to resolve the members through a headless service, which is possible in any case situation. There is no kind of ordering when your service will give you the endpoints. And today we also landed a PR for having the same DNS provider mechanism for SRV records as we have this in memcached clusters. And this is also nice because you can list things on your headless service side, and you just give DNS plus on one member list, and then it resolves to all the members that are on your DNS side. So this is also something to, if you run Loki close to Thanos or Cortex, you from a high level perspective, if you don't have to manage two different discovery mechanisms, it makes SRE work easier and more, let's say, less cognitive load, at least in the end. So this is where we're working. Yeah, I will open a PR to transfer the Cortex bits in Loki, just updating the dependency here and working any breaking changes out. And yeah, currently really happy about that because member list is for a small cluster with 2 replicas per component, except table manager, which we don't use currently yet. Probably good that we don't use it with BoltDB shipper, as far as I understand. So it's really happy about that, and we will go online with that in production.
Nice. Yeah, I've got a little bit farther down. I feel like there's a spot coming up real soon here for a 1.6 release, and it probably would be good to consider having like the 2 things you just listed, getting a revendered Cortex. And I mean, there's not a lot of huge features, but there's been a few. Cyril did a couple nice performance improvements over the last couple weeks, specific use cases we found where someone might have a high number of streams with a small amount of data. Because of how the batching was working, we were reprocessing the same chunks, and in reprocessing sense, we'd have to decompress them and reread them, not the whole chunk, just certain blocks of the chunk. But we found a couple use cases where people were basically exacerbating this to where there was like a significant amplification, like 100 megabytes of stored data could turn into many gigabytes of processed data. So there's fixes for that went in last week. The alerting and BoltDB and LogQL stuff won't make it, but I think we're at a good point here. It's been, forget when 1.5 was, in May, so we're more than a month now. So I can work with you on that, Perry, to see what, but it'd be good to get those wrapped up. And
for 1.6, I want to get rid of the capability that we added also, if possible, before we cut it.
Yeah, that ended up being kind of a nightmare, unsurprisingly. But so in 1.5, so Loki, we basically non-rooted the user in the Docker image, but we wanted to maintain the ability to run on port 80. Internally, we run services on port 80 is kind of a nice operation simplicity, so that if you need to figure out what port something's running on, the answer is 80, rather than trying to remember that it's 3000 for this or 3100 for Loki. And so the trouble with that is binding to a port less than 1024 isn't possible without being a root user, unless you add a Linux capability. So we've done that. We did that. We went that route, but then it basically broke the pod security policy that's optional in the Helm chart, because we didn't add the specific support for that capability. And it's like doing so, I understand people's feedback, right? Like they don't, like most people aren't doing what we're doing. And so it's annoying that they have to approve the capability. So I believe at this point, we're just going to move everything to port 3100 by default, remove the capability completely. Unless anybody really also wants the port 80 thing to say, it seems like it's just causing us more headache than, I mean, we can, we can still have things exposed on services on port 80 in like Kubernetes and remapping, but it's, I think that's definitely the direction
Perry, do you also have someone who joined your log team? I think someone reached out to me 2 weeks ago.
Yes, we are two of us working on that stuff currently, and we look forward to expand this. Basically, the team has a size of 7, but currently 2 are more or less dedicated to that topic, which is I try to do my best not to do all the work by my own and leave bits to my managers that I am just overflown with work from Loki and pull in people. One last comment on the member list, there is also a documentation section on that. So if someone else would like to try that on a non-OpenShift cluster, I would be really, really happy, because I have definitely a BS here on how things work. I don't expect anything special here, except that you use just a third service resource for the GoShip port. But you can, or maybe you can really squeeze things down for your setup on the same headless service like the gRPC port. Depends on your use case. It's definitely BS. That's what I want to say. If you want to try it out, give me feedback, or we can work that out for non-OpenShift.
Yeah, I think we could do it. Especially we have like 2 dev cluster. I think one of them could be switched to member list.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I mean, I think it's just inertia that keeps us running console, is because we have it and we're running it, and someone would have to go through but in the long run, we're going to want to direct people to member list, not console, because it'll be easier. It's one less thing they have to set up and run. So it does make sense for us to have, well, probably all of our clusters doing this, but certainly start by moving in a dev cluster. Cool. Thanks, Barry. I did another note in there that we did finally move Loki to Go 1.14. We were waiting for Cortex, kind of. OSHA's waiting for something else, but so far, I don't think we've seen anything significant in that change. But that is in master now. And then I guess Owen, you added this. So this is something that came about recently, like last week. This week is there's a bit of a gap right now in terms of getting logs out of things like lambdas or functions, ephemeral type services, where Loki has a hard requirement on streams having ordered data, and it also has a hard requirement on not making infinite streams. And so this kind of clashes a bit with things like lambdas that may have only like a UID or something. It depends a lot on how you're configuring and running them, but in the worst case scenario where someone has multiple parallel lambdas processing the same log stream, they could be all pushing logs into Loki with effectively the same labels, but overlapping and out of order timestamps. So we're working a solution to that. It's a couple pieces, and this will probably be an evolution over time, but for now, we already previously approved the design doc for having Promtail implement the same push API that Loki does. There are a few sort of advantages to this. You could basically stick a Promtail in between other Promtails to do a little bit of sort of federation or working around different network architectures and things. But it would work out here as well too, where many lambdas can push to Promtail, and then Promtail can assign the timestamps, so that the labels won't end up being or the series doesn't end up being out of order. You could run a few of them as long as the Promtails each have a different label. That label ends up not being terribly useful, right? Like, you don't really need to know which Promtail is the one that received your lambda logs and sent them, but it does work around the out of order problem. So that is in progress. We'll give some more. I'm sure we'll write a blog post about that. But if anybody out there is sort of struggling with this problem, we're hoping to have a little bit of a help with that. Anything else, Owen, that I missed on that?
Nope, I think you got it.
Sorry, my dogs are rather rambunctious today. What are you guys doing, huh? It's hot out. Yeah, we got about 6 minutes or so left. Anything else? Anybody? Questions, comments, feedback?
I'm working on a PR. That's been a week that I'm working on that PR, which is pushing the transformation of logs to metric down to the chunks and the ingester directly, which I think will increase the performance of metric queries by a big factor. So I'm still like, I actually finished the PR, but I need to fix all the tested because it's actually split the code base in two. Now we have a sample iterator, not just an entry iterator. And so it's taking a bit more time than I expected, but I think I should be able to test that today in a cluster and then send a PR either today or tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, this helps save us from, right, like my general understanding is we don't have to ship the log line around for metrics queries now. So, you know, once you've sort of read the line and done whatever filtering you need, it just turns into a sample at that point, and then we can handle it effectively, more effectively as a metric through the rest of the system, where previously we were still sort of moving it around and treating it as a log line, which isn't really necessary and kind of wasteful. Is that about right, Cyril? I think.
Yeah, so the local engine before was just requesting an entry iterator and then using that entry iterator to do everything that it was requiring to do. Now we can request both an entry iterator and a sample iterator. And so the nice benefit of that is that when we process chunks, we don't need to do the allocation of the log line. We can just read the buffer directly and transform it to a sample. Which allocation for metric queries are currently the bottleneck. So that should reduce the allocation by a big factor.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Finding more use cases and people interested in using metrics type queries, and that's only going to be more the case with the LogQL v2 stuff for sure. So
yeah,
that performance improvement will help a lot.
Yeah, that goes along also with Owen's work on the ruling.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to improve also instant evaluation, which is used by the ruler.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think we're definitely moving in the right direction for pretty reasonable performance on metric queries and LogQL v2 type extractions and ruling, and sort of having a much more capable and performance solution for metrics from logs. I mean, we don't, you know, we're certainly not advocating that Loki's a replacement for metrics, but plenty of people don't have metrics or have use cases where they only have logs. So the stories around supporting that are going to get a lot better in the next couple months. All right. Anybody else? Anything else exciting? Just quiet. I like the title.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for people outside of Grafana Labs for showing up. We're hoping to get more and more outreach on this. Awesome. Thanks everybody. Take care.
Invite them.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
See ya.